Hey, what's up everyone? Hope you're all having a wonderful time. This time we're going over my version of the Scion War Loop build that I've been playing around with for a while now. War Loop is a very powerful type of a build and there are a lot of variations that you can be playing it on. I'm going to show you a very basic and a budget-friendly version of the build for around 20 exalts. And this is considered very cheap for these kinds of build, if you are considering that in some cases this build can be worth up to a couple of mirrors. For my version we are going to focus on cold spells, but as I said there are a lot of variations and you can pretty much use whatever skill that you want. Some are better than others, but feel free to try different combinations that might be more of your liking. There are a lot of things that make this build work and I'm going to try my best to include everything that I know. If you feel that I missed something or just have additional questions, go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you're interested in how I leveled up my War Loop Scion, go check out the leveling guide for it, link will be in the description. Before we jump into the build, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe to the channel to show your support. And with that said, let's begin. Let's start with how the build is working. So first of all, the build is a cost on damage taken build, and basically once we take damage we shoot out all the spells that we have linked with a cost on damage taken support gem. To make this automated we need to start making a damage taken loop. First of all we want to make 2 one-handers with the essence of insanity, and we want to put them in our offhand. And this is going to trigger the whole loop later on. By swapping weapons, these spirits will spawn, and by spawning them back to our main hand, the spirits will then die. And by having 2 heartbone rings equipped, this makes it so when they die we take damage, and we will then start a damage loop that we have a link for. This will trigger summon skeletons, which will die pretty much directly once they are summoned, by having 3 to the dust jewels, and also a less duration support. And this we want to get as close to 99% less minion duration, and by having heartstone rings we take damage once they die, and this will start a loop with the skeletons. We also have another damage taken loop by using Forbidden Rite, and this skill deals 40% of our life as chaos damage once it's used, and therefore making this another damage loop. And these 2 loops together will make our damage taken loop to perfection and trigger our actually damage taken skills, which will deal damage to the enemies. There are a couple of things to keep in mind when setting up the damage loop. Don't try to get extra armor or chaos resist, because it's most likely going to brick the build. Here's a picture that I got from a friend where they do explain how much damage Forbidden Rite will do if you on certain thresholds in health, and also if you have a certain chaos resist. Also the difference between using a divergent versus a normal cost on damage taken support gem. This might help you get a little bit more understanding on how the loops works, or if it won't work for you. There might be that you have too low life, or maybe you have some added chaos resist on your gear somewhere. And one last and important note for this to work is that you need to have the Olroth Resolve Iron Flask. And this makes it so when this flask is on, our wall will not break, and therefore making it so when we do deal all this damage to ourselves, we won't die. To make this work we want to get 100% uptime on Olroth Resolve, so it won't expire. And to do this we use Brutal Restraint, which will change keystones to the Traitor. And this is providing us with flash charges for every empty flask slot that we have. We will also gain charges from the Pathfinder Asendancy, and lastly we gain some charges from the Survival Secret Cobalt Jewel. And we also want to get as much flask duration and charges gained around the passive tree. More about this when we do get to the passive tree part of this guide. And this also means that we will not take any damage from minor hits pretty much from the enemies. So if you have 2000 ward, and the deal under that value, you won't take any damage. This can make you feel like you are indestructible, but don't be fooled, you will die quite a bit. Or at least in the earlier stage of the build. The great thing about our version is that we are using cold skill, and this is adding another defensive layer, because we are shielding and freezing some of the enemies as well. Some pros and cons for this build. Let's start with the pros. It's great for map clearing, even early on. The build overall is just a walking simulator, and that's precisely how I like to play. A lot of ways to improve the build. You can easily pour a lot of currency, making it god tier. It's also a good boss killer, or at least later on when you have put some more currency into it. It can also do reflect mods on the maps. For some cons, you can't run all the map mods. Reduce cooldown recovery rate and also reduce flash shortage gain will most likely brick the build. You will most likely get a headache from all the flashes from the skills. Even though cold is kinda nice to you, there are some skills that are a lot worse. You need to reactivate the loop every time you enter a new area, such as a boss room. And lastly, it can be very hard to get your receipts capped. And the reason for that is that we are using a lot of uniques, and some uniques are reducing the resist as well. Next up, let's go over the skill links. And here it's very important that you have the gems in the same level and quality as I'm showing you. Otherwise, it won't work. So let's start with the damage loops. The first one here, we are using cost when damage taken support, level 5. And this we want to link with one anomalous minion speed support, and it's going to be level 20 and also quality 20. And this is reducing the minion duration by 40%. The next one that we are using is the less duration support, and this one we want at level 19 and also quality 20. And the last one here is we are using anomalous summon skeletons, and this we want at level 11 with a quality of 20. And here you can actually use a normal summon skeleton, but the reason that we are using anomalous is because the quality is making it so the minions can't be damaged for X seconds after being summoned. And if you are using a normal skeleton setup here, it might make it so the skeletons die too fast, and it can then break the build. So I would really recommend you to use these types of summon skeletons for this build. For the next loop, we are using a cost when damage taken support, level 12. And here we want to put our Forbidden Right, level 14. Next up is Sniper's Mark, level 14. And here you can pretty much use whatever curse or mark that you want. I prefer this one. It's provided us with increased damage from projectiles, and also the projectile will split towards 4 additional targets. So really nice there. You can go for Assassin's Mark for the charges if you like to, or something completely else. For the last one here we have Righteous Fire, and you want as high level as you can get, and this is granting us 39% more spell damage when we are using it, and this is applying to all our spells that we are using, so really awesome there. For the next one we are having Eternal Blessing support with Purity of Elements, and this is making it so our Purity of Elements is free, and yeah, we gain a lot of elemental resist and also elemental ailment immunity from this one. We're also having a Flame Dash for mobility and a Sigil of Power that we can pop for some extra damage. And for our actual damage setup, we are using cost when damage taking, level 20, with a level 20 freezing pulse, bone shield support, added cold damage, arcane surge, and lastly culling strike. And here, if you want to use a level 21 gem, you need to have your cost on damage taken 21, and then you will need to change all of these damage loops also, so you take more damage. And I would not recommend you to do that if you're unsure on how the whole damage loop work. And for our next link, we are using cost and damage taking support with Ice Spear, level 20, Creeping Frost. We are using empowered support, elemental focus, and lastly, greater multiple projectiles. And also our first link here, we are using it in our weapon. And for the second one, we are using it in our body armor. So, next up, let's go over the gear, starting with the uniques. And here, for our weapon, we are using the Annihilation Light Staff. And this is making us deal triple damage with elemental skills, providing a huge boost for our damage. We are receiving a reduction to our elemental resist though, so keep that in mind. If you feel that it's hard to keep up with the resist, there are some other staffs you can choose from. Duskstone is another great staff that can be used instead, and also a Cane of Kulimak is another great staff to use. Just make sure that you have as much damage and crit as you can get on it. And next up, for the rings, we are using these called Heartbound Loop. And these are build enabling and a must to have. Don't forget to get 20% quality on it, and it's from the Noxious Catalyst, or if you want to do it yourself. And this is very important, making it so the skeletons that we are spawning with our loop take more damage. The next one that we are using is our amulet, which is the Pandemonium. And this is providing us with a huge damage increase due to the cold penetration it provides. And here we also want to put counterweight as our anoint for extra crit chance and crit multiplier. This only costs a clear, amber and a silver oil to anoint, so it's quite cheap as well. If you are struggling on resist, you can go ahead and you can get a clutching talisman instead with some resist on it. This provides also some global defense, which will boost our ward, which is great. For the body armor, we are using Skin of the Lords, and this is giving us +2 to skills, but most important, the increased global defense, which will boost our ward by quite a bit. Keep in mind that buying one of these armors with a good keystone might be impossible with the right colors. So here I got a decent one with Versatile Combatant, which does nothing to us, so you're probably best off looking for something like this instead. Also keep in mind that you cannot change the colors on the armor piece. The other option would be to get a Skin of the Loyal instead. And this got the same things, but we only get +1 to our skills, but we can freely change our color on the sockets on this one. And that's going to be for the uniques that we are going to use. We do got a couple of jewels that we're going to use as well, but more about that in just a bit. Let's continue with the rares. So for the gloves and the helm and also the boots, we want to get as much ward and resist as we can get. And for the gloves, we want to get at least 400 ward. And for the helmet, we want to get at least 600 ward. And for the boots, we want to get at least 350. And this is giving us a pretty decent ward base to start around with. The boots here is the most annoying piece in my opinion. I got really lucky with these. I got a double T1 and a decent resist plus an open prefix for some movement speed. And for the last slot, we do have this belt. And the base doesn't really matter. The best one would be to get a leather base with the life on it. Here we want to get as much reduction to flask charges used and also flask effect duration. And if possible, you want to get cooldown recovery speed on here as well. This is very expensive to buy if you are aiming to get all these 3 mods. You can do as I did, and I got 2 fraction belts and I just recombinate them together. I will put a link on a video how I made this in the description if you're interested in checking that out. But if you do as I did here, you get the 2 fraction mods on the belt, and from here we can just craft the cooldown recovery on the belt instead from the crafting bench. And I just want to quickly note here, if you are going for the cooldown recovery, there are some thresholds to keep in mind. The first one is to get above 7% of the CDR, and the next one is 17%, and the last one is 27%. And I would say the 17% would be the most common one to use. To get this, you just craft the CDR on your belt, and here you can get up to 12%. And for the other 5% is going to obtain by using Lesser Eldritch Ichor on the boots here. And here you will get the 5% as a implicit. And the reason I don't have it is because I simply don't have the craft, and I'm just lazy of asking another human being. By having CDR will make it so your cost and damage taken will proc faster, and therefore shooting out more spells per second, meaning dealing more damage overall. Alright, next let's go over the jewels. And here we got quite a bit of different ones to go over, so let's start with the unique ones. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Brutal Restraint. And this one is making it so the keystones here will change to the Traitor, and this is providing us with Flash Archer for every empty flash slot that we have. And next up is going to be the Survival Secrets. And this is also providing us with some flash charges, but we do get reduced effect. But very important jewel overall. And next up is going to be Replica Pure Talent. And this is providing us with 2 mods here. We do get 30% increased damage from the Scion, but we also gain increased flash charges gain by 20%, just because we are connected to the Ranger tree here as well. And over here we have Intrusive Leap, and this is making it so we can pick whatever talents we want within this bubble here. On the right here we are using a Thread of Hope with a very large ring, very important to note. And this as well as this last one, pretty much we can then take these nodes here within this frame for free, and the most important one here is this one for increased fast charges gain. And for our cluster jewels, let's start with the large one. We are having one with the Storm Rider skill and also with the Widespread Destruction. Storm Rider providing us with power charges, really good. Widespread, just overall increased damage, area of effect, very nice. And obviously you can get one with a third notable as well, but the price is going to be from a couple of chaos to some exalts. The more important ones here is the medium ones, and here you want to get with increased flask effect duration. And if you can, get some with all elemental resist as well. This one overall is a little bit more expensive than the other one that I have, and it's just because it have increased effect on here as well. The passive skill that you want to get is Distal Perfection, and this is making it so we are getting increased flash effect duration, and a small notable, as you can see here, is providing a 7% increased flash effect duration and some elemental resist. So very good overall. For the second one here, as I mentioned, this is a little bit cheaper, and only reason is that it's more expensive is because the increased effect. So here we want pretty much the same. Just try to get as much elemental resist as you can get, and also the Distilled Perfection. And for the last jewels we are using is going to be 2 Dust Cobalt jewel. And these are making it so we are reducing our skeleton duration I have 3 of these, and all 3 is with 19%. The ideal way, the best way would be to have 1 with 19 and then have 2 with 20%. But this works for me, but as I mentioned, the best way would be to get 2 with 20% instead. And for the flask, we are using Olroth Resolve, and this is going to be build enabling, and the whole build won't work without it. Here we want to have as low as we can get on the increased charges, and we also want to get as high quality on the flask as possible to help out with having the flask on 100% uptime. For the next one, we are using Dying Sun, and this is going to make us shoot out even more projectiles and also providing us with some increased area of effect. For the third one, we are using a Quicksilver Flask for more movement speed. And here you also want to get as much curse reduction as you can get. This is making us not completely immune to curses, but we will get close enough to it with our lesser Pantheon, which I will go over in just a sec. And lastly, we are using Bithnus Flask with additional elemental resist as a suffix to help us get our resist capped. And also all these flasks are having the mod reused at the end of this flask effect, making them automated. And this you can achieve by using instilling orbs on the flasks. I would also like to note that if you are struggling with the flask charges for Olroth Resolve, you can simply just remove 1 additional flask, and this will make it so you will gain even more charges from the trait Keystone. And I would recommend you to pick out the Dying Sun if that is the case. And next is going to be about the skill tree. And I have in the PoB 1 tree for my leveling route. If you are interested, I also have a video on how I leveled up this character. If you are interested, link will be in the description. But here you have the tree for leveling, and you also have one before you can even start the build. And here you can see all the important nodes that you want to pick, as I mentioned, before you even start the ward loop build. And we also have our current one, which is going to be like this. And everything from here is just a big plus. The next step is going to be to pick the basic UL sockets over here and also the one over here for some more damage. Or here is the passive tree. And from here I just quickly want to go over some important passives and why they are so. So let's start over here real quick. So we are using the traitor. We gave the traitor from the brutal restraint. This is changing out this keystone here to the traitor, and this is making us gain flush charges for every empty flush slot. So very important one. The next one is over here, the mana wheel. It's called the Battle Rose, and this is going to make 10% of damage taken recouped as mana. And we also are using the Mana Master here for additional 10%. And this is going to be very important to sustain our mana. And the next one is going to be Iron Will, and this is going to provide us so strength damage bonus applies to all spell damage as well, giving us a bit of damage boost right here. This will here is quite nice. You gain some elemental damage and also the elemental resist. We are picking up the master here for even more elemental resist, really good as well. We are using Mind Over Matter, and this is making it so 30% of our damage taken is from mana before life, and this is also with the recoup here will keep us alive and also making so our mana is going to be sustained overall. We got over here flash charges, very important, and up here we have the 200 wheel, and this is preventing us with just damage which crit, but the important one here is the staff mastery. We get 30% increased defense while wielding a staff, which is providing us with additional ward. Really good overall. I went and I picked the strength here because I'm lacking some strength. Other than that, up here we are using Prodigy Perfection for increased mana and spell damage. Deep Thoughts, more mana over here, and regen. These 3 here is making us recoup damage as life. They are very important for this build to work, because you will most likely die otherwise. Okay. Down here is another important node, is the flask wheel here, which is increasing our flask effect duration. And also for the master here, our utility flask gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. Really nice. Here we got just damage, we got some more damage over here, and here we got the Thread of Hope, making it so we can pick everything that we want in this line over here. And here's the most important one, Replenishing Redemptions, which is giving us increased flask charges gained. I also went and I picked Heart of the Oak for some more increased life, chance to avoid being stunned, and the regen there overall. And for the last part is obviously the large cluster jewel here, making it so we gain a lot of flask effect duration, and yeah, just very, very good overall. So yeah, this is the skill tree. I recommend you go and download the PoB and just put it in and check and copy it as it is, because you can't really do much other than this. And for the Ascendancy, we are starting with going the downward route here for the Ranger Ascendancy and picking Pathfinder for our first one. And this is providing us with increased move speed, increased attack speed, but most importantly we gain 3 flask charges every 3 seconds, which is huge for this build. And yeah, we also have a chance for flasks to not be consumed, also really great. And for the third one we want to go with Path of the Ranger, and this is making it so we can start from the Ranger starting point here, putting points in here. We're saving a couple points by doing so. And for the last Ascendancy we are going upwards here for the Witch, and we are ending with the Elementalist. And this is making it so we we cannot take reflected elemental damage from our spells, which is huge, and also exposure that you are inflicting have an extra 20% to the affected resist, so we deal more damage overall by this. For the bandits, you want to kill them all for the extra 2 skill points. And for Pantheons, we want to go with ranking for the major one, and this will help us with not getting stun locked pretty much, and the other one doesn't really affect us, and because we are having the purity of elements. But if we are changing this one out, this would still be the one soul to go for. And for the lesser one, we are using the Soul of Yagul for the reduced curse effect. And with this, and we also get from the flask here, we are almost at 100. Not really, but it's pretty much close enough as it is. Alright everyone, there we go. This was my budget build for my version of the Ward Loop Scion. There are a lot of cool things about these kinds of builds, and it's just very impressive that it's possible to do this in Path of Exile. Overall, I've been really enjoying it. I just had this as a side project and I wanted to make a guide about it, so maybe you have a chance to try it out before it will get nerfed to the ground. Hopefully it will not, but you never know. If you played Warlock before, what is your favorite spell combos to use? I would love to hear it. Feel free to share it in the comments below. Check out some of my other videos regarding Ward Loop, maybe you get a tip or two that you didn't know of before. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like the video and also subscribing to the channel, it do mean a lot to me. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!